Hey there everybody, it's Alex here from VG247.com, and I've been playing a hell of a lot of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee over the last few weeks, and I wanted to sort of hop in and give you guys some tips based on the things that I've experienced with my many hours of the game. I've completed the game now, played a lot of the post-game, and I just figured I wanted to give some tips that I wish I knew when I started out. And some of these you may have picked up if you'd read my review or watched my review here on YouTube, link in the description and all that. But if you haven't, some of this may be all new to you. And even if you have read that stuff, there'll be some points you won't have seen before. So, here we go. In this game, you don't just want to catch them all, you want to catch many Pokemon. And what I mean by that is, catching Pokemon now is a major part of the progression in Pokemon Let's Go. Catching levels you up, it gains you experience. Catching Pokemon is primarily how you will grind out new levels alongside defeating other trainers in battle. But also, as you catch Pokemon, much the same as Pokemon Go, you can transfer Pokemon to Professor Oak, and receive rewards in return. The rewards you receive in return in this game have the same name as Pokemon Go, Candy, but they function slightly differently in that they're not usually limited to one specific Pokemon, and that Candy can power up existing Pokemon, boosting specific stats so that they are overall better in battle. So this is a great way to boost a Pokemon's ability as well as leveling it up. It also helps you to level up, so you want to catch lots and lots and lots of Pokemon, and even there will be some points in the game where optional rewards and stuff like that are checked behind not how many unique species you've caught, but rather how many Pokemon you've caught, period. So yes, there are things in the game that require you to have caught 30 different Pokemon, but also there are things in the game that require you to have caught 100 Pokemon of any species. So yeah, you definitely want to catch many, many Pokemon. That leads into my second tip, which is pretty simple really. Every single time you pass a Pokemon, you want to stop and pick up more Pokeballs. You're going to need the balls. You use so many of them, you get through way more than previous games. If you are a veteran of the series, you might remember how when you arrived at a city, your first port of call would always be to hit up the Pokemon Center to get your Pokemon healed, and then probably hit up a shop and primarily to buy potions and stuff like that, and antidotes in order to keep your team healed up as you've worked your way through the gauntlet of trainers and wild encounters. Because now wild encounters play out like Pokemon Go and there's no fight around them, actually you really primarily need Pokeballs, but you will need other stuff just for, touching up your team after trainer battles. But you will need a lot of Pokeballs, so make sure you pick up as many as you can. And also, don't be afraid to speak to NPCs after beating them, or even NPCs that don't have battles, in places where there are a lot of wild encounters, because a lot of those NPCs actually will give you some additional Pokeballs if you're low on them. Third up, in relation to the last point again, talk to absolutely everybody. There's loads of NPCs in all the buildings of every town, and on many of the routes there's NPCs who aren't trainers, and loads of NPCs provide really interesting stuff. Some of them will just provide story information, background information on the world of Pokemon on this version of Kanto, but many of them actually have gameplay bonuses too. You might find trades for Pokemon. Among those trades, you may find trades for exclusive Pokemon that can't be caught in the wild, such as, Alolan forms. And you also might find you get free items and stuff like that too. There's NPCs that provide a lot of different stuff. Sometimes they have requirements, like I said, of catching certain Pokemon beforehand. But if they do, they'll tell you that. So you should talk to everybody, because there's a lot of people who are completely optional who have a lot to offer to you on your adventure. Point 4. When you're catching Pokemon in the wild, you need to make a judgment about what sort of ball you need and if you need to use a berry, and be quick about it. Because Pokemon won't stick around forever, especially the higher level, rarer or more powerful creatures. If you take too long to catch them or use too many balls, they will run away. The exception to this is like story encounters, like with the legendary birds, but for the most part, you need to try and catch a Pokemon as swiftly as you can. Part 5 relates back to the catching. In fact, a lot of this relates back to the catching because it's the most different part of this game. And that is, you're going to want to unlock the judge function. Now, the judge function is basically very similar to a feature in Pokemon Go, where you can ask the professor to give you an idea of how good a Pokemon is, and that will give you a rating based on the Pokemon's hidden stats that just gives you a rough idea of how viable that Pokemon will be in battle. It splits into 3 different branches in this. You get a Pokemon that's okay, a Pokemon that's good, or a Pokemon that's amazing. So if you're looking for one to fight on your team, you're going to want one that is branded as amazing, of course. Now, just so you know, the judge function is something you have to unlock, and you unlock it by catching 30 unique Pokemon species, and then you'll want to look for Professor Oak's assistant in a building on Route 11. He's upstairs, I think. You want to speak to him and he will unlock that feature for you. That's quite early in the game. That's maybe after the 2nd gym, maybe after the 3rd gym. I can't quite remember. But you'll want to do that as soon as you possibly can, because being able to judge what Pokemon are good is really useful. For what it's worth, by the way, your starter Pokemon, your Pikachu or your Eevee, will have amazing brand stats by default. The game does make sure that you always get a good starter Pokemon in terms of stats. While we're talking about starter Pokemon, point 6. The original starter Pokemon are out there in the world, both in the wild and as trades with NPCs, so you're going to want to keep an eye out for them. That's Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur, of course, and I'm sure many of you have an attachment to one of those Pokemon, and you might want to have one on your team, or their evolutions on your team. So be aware, they are out there in the world. You can encounter them in the wild very, very rarely, in earlier areas of the game, before, say, the first 2 or 3 gyms. And also, for what it's worth, there are moments in the game where you can also get your hands on one. If you see an NPC out in the wild with a Squirtle, a Charmander, or a Bulbasaur with them, you should go and talk to that NPC, because if they believe you're an experienced enough trainer, they will give you that Squirtle, Charmander, or Bulbasaur, and it will be one with good stats. As an aside, for the record, you can catch Pikachu in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, and you can catch Eevee in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. So you can get both in both versions, but obviously the buddy Pokemon will always be the one from the version you picked. And final point, point 7. There are version-exclusive Pokemon in this game, so you will want to trade with the opposite version as usual. There's 7 unique Pokemon to each version that can't be caught in the other version, and yeah, the only way to get them is to trade with somebody who has the opposite game to you. Except this game's a little bit different. So there is an alternative method, actually. I lied. You can actually get the other Pokemon through Pokemon Go, of course, as well, because you can transfer Pokemon from Pokemon Go into Pokemon Let's Go. And that means if you have Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and you can't therefore get Bellsprout, you can transfer a Bellsprout in from Pokemon Go. So keep that in mind if you are trying to actually complete your Pokedex. If you're struggling and you can't find a friend to trade with, Pokemon Go may well be the answer. Anyway, yeah, those are my 7 tips for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I really enjoyed the game. Do check out our review both here on YouTube and on our website vg247.com if you want to know more about what I thought of it. If you're playing the game and you want some more help, we're going to have plenty of guides on vg247.com, so hit us up over there. And if you like this sort of stuff, don't forget to give us a like, a subscribe, and all that jazz. It really does help us out. So yeah, that's it. Until next time, everyone. See ya.
Pikachu!